Hello, BookTube, and welcome back to a series of videos in which I am reading you a book. We are reading the good book. We are reading the New Testament, the Gospel according to St. Matthew. I had to take a couple of days to pause, but that's probably just as well. And besides, if I ever get around to making a playlist, that won't show. So we are now up to chapter 14 in the adventures of Jesus of Nazareth, who is a miracle worker, who is preaching a new kind of gospel in the land of Judea. And we are reading this in the King James Version, so that will account for the antique language. At that time, Herod the Tetrarch heard the fame of Jesus and said unto his servants, This is John the Baptist. He is risen from the dead, and therefore mighty works do shew forth themselves in him. And then we're told why Herod would think this, because we haven't heard this about John. For Herod had laid hold on John and bound him and put him in prison for Herodias' sake, his brother Philip's wife. For John said unto him, It is not lawful for thee to have her. And when he would have put her to death, he feared the multitude, because they counted him as a prophet. But when Herod's birthday was kept, and the daughter of Herodias danced before them, and pleased Herod, whereupon he promised with an oath to give her whatsoever she would ask. And she, being before instructed of her mother, said, Give me the head of John the Baptist in a charger, that is, on a plate. And the king was sorry. Nevertheless, for the oath's sake, and them which sat with him at meat, he commanded it be given to her. And he sent and beheaded John in the prison, and his head was brought in a charger and given to the damsel, and she brought it to her mother. And his disciples came and took up the body and buried it, and went and told Jesus. So the disciples of John collect his body. They now have news to give Jesus, which is that John the Baptist, who heralded his arrival, the arrival of Jesus' ministry, has been killed by Herod, who is apparently surrounded by psychopaths. Because it's not just a psychopathic thing for his brother's wife to ask for the head of John the Baptist on a plate. It's also a psychopathic thing for the daughter to go along with it. When Jesus heard it, he departed thence by ship into a desert place apart. And when the people had heard thereof, they followed him on foot out of the cities. And Jesus went forth and saw a great multitude, and was moved with compassion toward them, and he healed their sick. And when it was evening, his disciples came to him, saying, This is a desert place, and the time is now past. Send the multitude away, that they may go into the villages and buy themselves victuals. But Jesus said unto them, They need not depart, give ye them to eat. And they said unto him, We have here but 5 loaves and 2 fishes. And he said, Bring them hither to me. And he commanded the multitude to sit down on the grass, and took the 5 loaves and the 2 fishes, and looking up to heaven, he blessed and brake, and gave the loaves to his disciples, and the disciples to the multitude. And they did all eat, and were filled. And they took up the fragments that remained there, 12 baskets full. And they that had eaten were about 5,000 men, plus women and children. And straightway Jesus constrained his disciples to get into a ship, and to go before him into the other side, while he sent the multitudes away. And when he had sent the multitudes away, he went up into a mountain apart to pray. And when the evening was come, he was there alone. But the ship was now in the midst of the sea, tossed with the waves, for the wind was contrary. And in the 4th watch of the night, Jesus went unto them, walking on the sea. And when the disciples saw him walking on the sea, they were troubled, saying, It is a spirit. And they cried out for fear. But straightway Jesus spake unto them, saying, Be of good cheer, it is I, be not afraid. And Peter answered him, and said, Lord, if it be thou, bid me come unto thee on the water. And he said, Come. And when Peter was come down out of the ship, he walked on the water to go to Jesus. But when he saw the wind boisterous, he was afraid, and beginning to sink, he cried, saying, Lord, save me. And immediately Jesus stretched forth his hand, and caught him, and said unto him, O thou of little faith, wherefore didst thou doubt? And when they were come into the ship, the wind ceased. Then they that were in the ship came and worshipped him, saying, Of a truth, thou art the Son of God. And when they were gone over, they came into the land of Gennesaret. And when the men of that place had knowledge of him, they sent out unto him all the country around about, and brought unto him all that were diseased, and besought him that they might only touch the hem of his garment. And as many as touched were made perfectly whole. And that is comparatively brief. That is our next chapter here, which its main purpose is to redo a scene that we saw in Mark. the scene where the disciples are tossing at sea on the Sea of Galilee. I swear, they have the worst luck. The Sea of Galilee is a tranquil puddle. But every time they go out on it, there's a raging storm. In Mark, we see them contending with the storm at sea when they see Jesus walking on the water. Only Matthew changes it. He changes the story. In Mark, we're told that Jesus doesn't look like he's headed towards them or even knows they're there. In Matthew, he is headed towards them, and he has a faith lesson to impart to them. By conducting a miracle on their behalf, it's a little strange, the lesson here. The lesson here is for Peter. You're of so little faith that when I told you to walk on the water to me, and you were successfully doing so, you then lost faith and began to sink. This is the first time that the disciples in Matthew have asked Jesus to prove anything. This is the first contest they've ever given him. Who does Peter think that he is if it's not Jesus? Who does he think? What does he think will happen if it's not Jesus and he gets into the water? Won't he drown? But also, B, Jesus has given the disciples superpowers. Right? Just a couple of chapters ago, he gave them superpowers to raise the dead, to heal the sick, to cast out demons. It seems a little forced. It seems like whoever wrote the Gospel according to St. Matthew, looking at that incident in Mark and cleaning it up for his own pedagogical purposes, rather than making any sense out of it. He doesn't actually make any sense out of it. This isn't how these characters would act, having spent weeks, months with this wonder worker. They would expect that if he tells them you can walk on water, go ahead and do it. But it's a neat moment, I suppose, and we get the feeding of the 5,000. Only now it's the 10,000. It's the 5,000 and all their women and children, with fragments left over, with stuff left over. So miracle working, but also a bit different. That the miracle of walking on the water and Peter walking on the water for a bit feels a little different. It feels more preachy, more of. It's another note that is sounded in Matthew that we are dealing here with a forming movement. Not in Jesus' own time, of course. This was written long after Jesus' own time, but in that after time, it feels like we're dealing with a movement where in Mark is so raw, whereas in Matthew we get little hints here and there that this is meant to instruct, not just be there as a document. So, very interesting. We'll move on to the next chapter, which is considerably longer next time, and I will see you then. Thank you, BookTube.